Keith Whitley was found dead in his Goodlettsville home just after noon today. At this point, his death is a mystery to police. Barb Kramer reports.
Whitley has been gone for nearly 3 decades, but you still have all these posters and flyers up of him on your wall here.
And as long as I am in here, they...
Keith Whitley was more than just a rising country music star. He was a voice that could cut straight to the heart. With his haunting ballads and soulful delivery, many believed he was destined to join the ranks of the greatest in the genre. But behind the music, Whitley carried a weight that few truly understood. By the time of his shocking death in 1989 at just 34 years old, fans were left reeling, wondering how someone with so much promise could be gone so soon. For decades, speculation swirled. Some said it was the pressures of fame. Others pointed to his troubled personal life. And while the official cause of death was reported, many suspected that the full truth had never been told. What really happened to Keith Whitley in those final hours? And why did it take so long for the real story to come to light? Today, with the benefit of hindsight, testimony from those closest to him, and details that were long overlooked, we can finally piece together the heartbreaking puzzle. What emerges is not just the story of a talented singer lost too soon, but a sobering lesson about the hidden struggles of those who seem to have it all. This is the mystery of Keith Whitley. Keith Whitley's story begins in the rolling hills of Sandy Hook, Kentucky, a place where music was woven into everyday life. Born on July 1, 1954, Jackie Keith Whitley grew up in a household where Appalachian traditions ran deep. The sounds of bluegrass and country filled the air, and it wasn't long before young Keith discovered his own voice. Even as a child, people noticed something special about him. His tone carried an honesty, a rawness, that felt far older than his years. By his teenage years, Whitley was already performing locally. Alongside his friend Ricky Skaggs, he became a part of Ralph Stanley's legendary Clinch Mountain Boys, a band that would shape his style forever. Playing with Stanley wasn't just a stepping stone, it was an education. Night after night, Keith stood on stage learning the craft of live performance, the power of storytelling through song, and the discipline it took to keep music alive in its purest form. But even during these early years, another pattern began to emerge, one that would shadow Keith for the rest of his life. Those close to him spoke about his tendency to drink heavily, often pushing himself past safe limits. In small towns and backstage gatherings, it seemed harmless enough, just another young man living hard and fast. Yet in Keith's case, alcohol was not just a social indulgence. It was a crutch, something he leaned on more and more even as his career blossomed. Still, his talent was undeniable. By the early 1980s, Nashville came calling. Keith's smooth yet aching vocals set him apart in a crowded industry. Songs like Miami, My Amy, and 10 Feet Away introduced him to a wider audience. Soon, he was no longer just a promising voice from Kentucky. He was one of country music's brightest rising stars. But fame brought pressure, and with pressure came more drinking. Those who loved him saw the cycle forming, dazzling success on stage followed by private battles behind closed doors. He was young, talented, and in demand, but already carrying demons that were growing harder to ignore. The stage was being set. Keith Whitley's music would soon capture millions, but so too would his struggles. What began as a promising journey out of Kentucky's hills was turning into something far more complicated. A story of brilliance and self-destruction running side by side. Finally solved. And the truth, as you'll see, is not good. By the mid-1980s, Keith Whitley was no longer just a rising talent. He was one of country music's most promising stars. His warm, emotional voice carried songs that sounded timeless, like echoes from another era, yet still fresh enough to dominate radio. He had found his stride in Nashville, releasing hit after hit, and was quickly becoming a household name among country fans. But his life was about to change in ways that extended far beyond the stage. In 1986, Keith married fellow country artist Lori Morgan, the daughter of Grand Ole Opry legend George Morgan. Their union seemed like a perfect pairing. Two artists bonded not only by music, but by a shared passion for storytelling and performance. To the outside world, they looked like a golden couple, young, talented and destined to rule the country charts together. Behind the curtain, though, Keith's struggles with alcohol were deepening. Friends recalled that even in moments of triumph, a hit record, a sold-out show, or time spent with his growing family, the bottle was never far from his reach. At first, Lori believed that love could help him fight his demons. She encouraged him, stood by him, and prayed that with her support, he could overcome the dependency that had already taken root in his youth. Yet the pressures of fame only fueled the cycle. As Keith's career climbed, so did the expectations. There were endless tours, interviews, and recording sessions. The adoration of fans was uplifting, but it also came with a hidden cost. Keith was an artist who felt deeply, and when the lights dimmed, he often struggled with loneliness, exhaustion, and the weight of living up to an image he could not always sustain. Still, his music was soaring. In 1988, he released Don't Close Your Eyes, the album that would cement his legacy. The title track, along with songs like When You Say Nothing at All and I'm No Stranger to the Rain, showcased not only his remarkable talent, but also his ability to convey vulnerability in a way few others could. These were not just songs. They were emotional confessions, as if Keith were baring his soul to the world. Ironically, while his career was reaching its highest point, his personal life was unraveling under the same forces that made him famous. Lori, caught between love and fear, often found herself playing the role of caretaker, worrying constantly about what might happen if Keith couldn't control his drinking. Those closest to him saw the toll it was taking. His body weakened, his moods unpredictable, and his ability to resist temptation slipping further away. For Keith, success was a double-edged sword. On stage, he was adored, his voice captivating audiences night after night. Off stage, he was a man wrestling with demons that fame only magnified. It was as if two versions of him existed, the star who seemed destined for greatness, and the vulnerable soul who couldn't escape the grip of addiction. By the late 1980s, it was clear that Keith Whitley was not just battling for his career, he was battling for his life. And even those who loved him most could sense that the story might not end well. By 1989, Keith Whitley was living two very different lives. On one hand, his career had reached dazzling heights. Don't Close Your Eyes had become a massive success, turning him into one of country music's brightest stars. His voice, haunting and vulnerable, spoke directly to listeners' hearts. Critics were calling him the heir to legends like Lefty Frizzell and George Jones. Nashville insiders whispered that he was on the verge of superstardom, with a future that seemed limitless. But behind the curtain, Keith was spiraling. His struggle with alcohol had become more than a bad habit. It was a life-threatening dependency. Friends and family described his drinking as relentless, a dangerous pattern that even he seemed unable to escape. His wife, Lori Morgan, did everything in her power to help him. She urged him to seek professional treatment, begged him to slow down, and prayed that their love and family could be enough to pull him back from the brink. But Keith's demons ran deep, and no amount of fame, fortune, or affection seemed to silence them. The spring of 1989 was especially turbulent. Keith had been celebrating recent successes, but those celebrations often blurred into long nights of heavy drinking. His friends noticed his health declining. He appeared tired, worn down, and frail despite his youthful age. Some later said it was as if he knew deep down that he was running out of time. On May 9, 1989, the tragedy struck. That morning, after a night of heavy drinking, Keith was found unconscious in his Nashville home. Despite frantic attempts to revive him, it was too late. He was just 34 years old. The official cause of death was acute alcohol poisoning, with his blood alcohol level reported at more than 5 times the legal driving limit. The news hit the country music world like a thunderclap. Fans were stunned. How could someone with so much talent, someone at the very peak of his career, be gone so suddenly? For many, the revelation of alcohol's role was shocking, though not entirely surprising. Those closest to him had seen the signs, had feared this very outcome. But knowing it was possible did not make the loss any easier to bear. Lori Morgan was devastated. In later interviews, she spoke of her anguish and the helplessness she felt in those final months, knowing Keith was slipping away but unable to stop it. She described their last conversations with heartbreaking clarity, recalling his laughter, his dreams, and the pain he carried silently beneath it all. The tragedy of Keith Whitley's death was not only that it came too soon, but that it was preventable. He had the talent, the support, and the love of millions, yet addiction still claimed him. In the end, the same vulnerability that gave his music such power also made him fragile in ways that fame could not protect. His final days were a stark reminder that behind the glitz of the stage, artists often live with struggles unseen by the crowd. And in Keith's case, those struggles ended a life that had only begun to show its true potential. The death of Keith Whitley in May 1989 sent shockwaves far beyond the borders of Nashville. At just 34 years old, he had already achieved what many artists spend a lifetime chasing, a string of hit records, critical acclaim, and the love of a devoted fan base. But his passing left behind more than grief. It left a haunting question that still lingers today. What might he have become if he had conquered his demons? In the weeks that followed, the country music world mourned not just the loss of a man, but of a future that would never be written. Radio stations played his songs endlessly, from the bittersweet ache of "When You Say Nothing at All" to the defiance of "I'm No Stranger to the Rain." Fans clung to the music, hearing new layers of meaning in lyrics that now felt eerily prophetic. His voice, once filled with hope and vulnerability, became a symbol of what had been lost. For Lori Morgan, the pain was immeasurable. She not only lost her husband, but the father of her young child, and the partner she believed had the power to reshape country music. In interviews, she spoke candidly about the torment of watching him struggle, about the efforts to save him, and about the heartbreak of realizing love alone wasn't enough. To this day, she carries his memory as both a source of pride and sorrow. In Nashville, Keith's absence was deeply felt. Fellow musicians described him as one of the most gifted voices of his generation, an artist who could make an audience cry with a single note. His blend of traditional country roots with modern sensibility set a standard that influenced countless singers who followed. Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson, and many others have pointed to Whitley as a guiding inspiration. And yet, the mystery of Keith Whitley lies not in how he died, the official record is clear, but in what might have been. He was only beginning to explore the depths of his artistry. Some believed he was poised to become the face of a new era in country music, bridging the gap between its traditional past and a more modern sound. Others felt he could have joined the ranks of legends, his name spoken alongside Merle Haggard, George Jones, and Hank Williams. Instead, his career became frozen in time, a snapshot of brilliance cut short. Each new anniversary of his death brings the same bittersweet reflection. The man who gave the world so much in so little time could have given even more, if only he had been able to conquer the darkness that followed him. Today, more than 3 decades later, Keith Whitley's music continues to resonate. His songs are covered by new generations of artists, his records still sell, and his story serves as both inspiration and caution. He remains a reminder that even the brightest stars can burn out too soon, and that talent alone is not enough to protect someone from their own inner battles. The tragedy of Keith. Whitley isn't just that he died young, it's that he never got the chance to show the world everything he was capable of. His mystery is not in the cause of his death, but in the aching question left behind. What heights could he have reached, and how might he have reshaped country music had he lived beyond 34?